Hello, I am Pigeon, or Xander, or whatever you want to call me. I don't really care. And today, we're going to be talking about epic bacon. I'm in a new apartment. I have a cat named Squid, and a new setup, just like every fucking video, I swear. Do you guys miss millennial mustache humor? You don't mind if a brother derps out on some straight up random humor? And do you have unchangeable positive feelings towards the state of Israel and deny a genocide? If all of that interests you, or you align with all of that, allow me to introduce to you none other than Harley Morenstein, aka Epic Mealtime. Jesus Christ, the internet used to be just so simple. Whatever happened to my Tumblr Doctor Who heads? I think society started failing the minute the Onceler fandom started to die off. So who is Harley, and what is Epic Mealtime? Well, assuming that you didn't just click on this video because you recognized the title, allow me to do some much needed exposition on a very odd channel. Epic Mealtime was a cooking channel created back in 2010, and it was hosted by Harley Morenstein and a bunch of his friends at the time. The point of this show was to essentially make just like food that is the absolute worst for you, and typically the recipes heavily involve like fast food, bacon, and alcohol. I was never personally a fan of the show. I mean, when I was 6 years old, when the channel was created, I watched my fair share of Smosh and Markiplier, but an alcoholic with a Keemstar beard cooking bacon didn't really interest me that much. Even as I got older, like 11 or so, I watched different degenerates doing things under the influence of alcohol to entertain me.
You hear that, girl? That's me. That's all me, baby.
Despite that, Epic Mealtime was actually quite the force in the online zeitgeist at the time. I mean, these guys hit 1 million subscribers in like 2011. That's like when hitting 1 million subscribers actually like meant something, and it wasn't just like everyone has it now. I mean, at one point, these guys were able to double their sub count from 3 million to 6 million in a single year. That is absurd, and for the time that was not unheard of, but certainly a big accomplishment. And I think now it may be super easy to look at the stagnation of this channel's legacy and just assume that it was all for naught. But in all honesty, we have to acknowledge that it would be a disservice to not mention how much of a force it was at the time. I mean, they had fucking Tony Hawk on. That's the guy from the video game. To my knowledge, they weren't ever able to book Spider-Man, so maybe like Tony's a bit of a dick for not putting Harley in contact with him, but I digress. To be completely honest, from what I've seen, I actually think that overall it kind of holds up well. I mean, some of the humor has kind of gotten cringy when looking back on it now, but that's just kind of the nature of being an online figure.
Bacon. Bacon weaves a bacon. Ham. Wrapped it in bacon. Beer batter. Beer. Bacon. Beer batter. Steak. Beer batter. Beer batter. Bacon. Beer waffles. Jack Daniels. Used a lot of Jack Daniels. Balls. Balls. Bacon. Bacon cream cheese stuffed French toast dumpling. Big ass bacon plate. Jack Daniels. Balls.
And while I don't feel comfortable saying that Epic Mealtime was the first cooking channel, or that it influenced all of your favorite cooking creators today, I think it is important to mention that it did show that audiences online will tune in to cooking shows that feel less sanitized and less focused on
balls.
Epic Mealtime was one of the first big cooking shows that really just did not feel corporate. Ow! Golly, dude. So Xander, I hear you screaming at your Leapfrog tablet that you are certainly watching this video on. If this show was such a powerhouse, the mitochondria of YouTube, if you will, why is it struggling to even hit 10K views as of late? Well, despite Jay Leno interviews and content creator awards. Harley's career has clearly begun to digress. Although maybe they'll be the first channel to hit 7 million subscribers twice. You never know. Well, an exact reason for the downfall and regression of Epic Mealtime is kind of hard to pinpoint, as anything on the internet is just a fucking jumbled mess of stupid bullshit. But this show has seemed to have endless controversies since it was even started. I mean, even as early as 2011, they were already in a lawsuit with one of their co-creators, Toph. The lawsuit ended in them settling out of court, with neither party really ever stating what the settlement actually is, to my knowledge. But despite that, I think it's fair to say that it was not a good start or a good omen for the channel's future. The only thing we know about the settlement is that Toph ended up leaving, and we can either assume that was because of the settlement, or there was the settlement, and then he was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with any more of this, fuck off, and they just kind of mutually agreed to not work together anymore. Unsurprisingly, this was not an isolated incident, even if lawsuits galore did not ensue. It seems that a lot of the inner circle and a lot of the actors that were working on Epic Mealtime felt as if the actual YouTube channel itself was becoming too corporate and didn't feel fun anymore. Both Alex Peralt and Tyler Lemko, people that were consistently on Epic Mealtime, left on pretty, at least lukewarm terms, but I'd argue bad terms. Lemko's accusations were a lot more light. He basically just said that business got in the way of it being fun, but Peralt's were a lot more damning. Peralt felt that he was not being treated fairly for the amount of work he was putting into it. And according to Peralt, no other cast member or crew member owned any part of the company except for Harley. And then to put extra salt in the wound after Peralt left, Harley decided to just take the character that Alex played and then just have a different actor play him. What a shit show. But honestly, despite all of those controversies for quite a while, the show was still pulling in a decent amount of views. Even as more and more cast members left, it didn't really seem like they were stagnating at all. I mean, all of this happened pre-2015-ish, and from what I can tell, most of the decline in viewership started in 2015 to like 2016. Sure, they still got the occasional hit post-2016, like the time that they made enough food waste to feed a family of 20. But a 7 million subscriber channel was struggling to even hit 100K views. From what I can tell, the real start of the end was when Harley began to work on his YouTube Red show. That's a fucking throwback, I know, YouTube Red, Jesus Christ. There's no empirical evidence for this really beyond just speculation, but I imagine that the already dwindled cast having Harley show up less and less was not good for maintaining viewership. I think that all of this led to a downturn in views with an inevitable minor spike upon his return, and then just a continuation of that same regression. But despite all the regression I've talked about, honestly, even up to 2021, he was still getting enough views to really sustain a life off of content creation. But I think after 10 years of essentially the same content, with a dried up cast with only like 2 or 3 people from the original cast still on the channel ever, a less consistent upload schedule, and then Harley making a weird pivot towards low-effort React content, I think it was just all too much for the channel. Sure, he did like an influencer boxing fight where he punched one of the Game Grumps in the head a few times, but I'm not going to pretend like that's substantive enough to, you know, make a career off of. And with the podcast, he started in 2022 because Lord knows we need more of those, which seems to have taken up all of his time, despite it performing poorly even upon its inception. We have a channel that hasn't posted in 9 months and is nothing more than a relic of what it used to be. Also, sick fucking AI thumbnails, man. Are you even pretending that you were ever a person with integrity, or are you just saying, fuck it? So why am I, a channel for all intents and purposes that only does political content, dissecting the slow decline of a channel that has reached heights that I can only hope my own ever even sniffs? Why the fuck did I say sniffs? Sniffs. Well, it's for 2 reasons. Reason 1 is, fuck you. This is my channel. I'll talk about what I want. If I want to make a 6-part series about my favorite Walmart graphic tees, that's my God-given right, no matter how fucking esoteric that subject is. But the more important reason is that Harley, our sweet, grease-covered corporate alcoholic, has decided to throw his ring into the realm of politics. And would you believe it or not, he started defending the genocide of Palestinians. And Harley, I gotta be honest, this is where you fucked up. Because listen, man, you may have me beat on eating 10 pounds of bacon in one sitting. I'll give you that one. But I make fun of Zionist pigs like you on the daily. So, get ready, freak. God, that was so much exposition. Too much time on a man with a porn stash and unwashed hair. So what has Harley been up to as of late? Well, now he posts on a separate channel under his awesome motorcycle name. It's basically just poorly vlogging from a man that had the least amount of personality on a channel he created. So, as you can imagine, it's not that interesting. I mean, look at this alcoholic man-child just brazenly pointing a camera in his friend's face at a fucking pizza hookah bar.
Drink. Why would you hit me with that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's crazy, bro. You just stabbed the hookah into my thigh.
This is not liable.
What is in my drink? Yeah.
How is it? Do you like it?
It's good, it's good.
I want your opinion.
Dip it in that, maybe. Give it a little dunk of
A
this.
little marinade. Marijuana.
Hey. Oh yeah, my drink is.
Let me know if that seems interesting to you guys. At least he tagged the description correctly. Also, he does DJing now, because of course, the guy who has turned to React content and vlogging content is also now trying to pretend he's a musician because he's a DJ.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, round.
From what I can tell, generally his online presence seems pretty removed from politics. And that seems like it's kind of done on purpose because, in all honesty, he's not that smart. There are times where he lets his general allegiances show, like in this 2-hour-long mumble fest he had with Some Ordinary Gamer. Sorry, it's Some Ordinary Gamers. And they just kind of loosely gesture to admitting that they believe in the Hamas under hospitals hoax.
I got a question for Muda, actually. Because I was watching Destiny once and he popped in and just went on a Discord call with him during one of his videos. But and you mentioned before Hassan H3. Who do you got? You got Destiny or Hassan?
Between them, man,
Yeah.
I've got like no dog in that fight. But I mean, I've obviously talked to Destiny a lot more, so I'm a little bit more partial to him in this situation. Hassan, as much as I love Hassan, like his recent coverage with that like Hamas, like the hospital situation has rubbed me so wrong. Because like as even as like a Muslim, you like I hate the fact that people turn this into such a team sport situation, right? Like this is like, to me, any conflict is not like a team sport. Like it should never be, right? Like I look at this situation, I'm like, civilians are dying everywhere.
But other than that, he seems like he knows to generally shut the fuck up. I'm sure there are some more damning clips in his podcasts, but there is no fucking way on God's green earth I am watching 103 podcast episodes that are all an hour to 3 hours long with a man that sounds either like he is drunk or his liver is just fucking completely shot because of how much he used to drink. Like, I don't know if he got CTE from those YouTuber boxing events, but his brain always sounds like it is actively hemorrhaging whenever he speaks.
You guys want to know if I had a good time last night? Well, for one, I'm wearing different clothes right now, so what's up? Two, I don't know whose car this is. But I'm driving it now. Well, I mean, I know whose car it is, but I have a car now.
But as all YouTubers love to do with the ongoing genocide that's happening right now, he's turning it into awesome drama farm content. He won the Hasbara 3 podcast to sidestep all the horrible shit he's been saying online, so he can just be like, yes, I hate the same people you do.
I showed a clip of him saying the goal of the Houthis is to get the Jews to leave Israel. My response was, by telling Jews of Israel to go back where they came from, Hassan is attempting to deny Jewish heritage in the Middle East. It characterizes them not as indigenous, but as white colonizers, which he then despite the fact that 60% of Jews in Israel are actually native to the Middle East. And then he does exactly what I said he does. He basically erased it all, paints them as white colonizers, says I'm doing Hasbara. It's fucking insane. What do you think about that, Harley? I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that.
Nah, it sucks, dude.
Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it?
I thought we were
Fuck
doing,
that guy.
I thought we were doing no Hassan Day today, you know, and I come in and it's fucking what? We're going in on it? All right. I've been getting a lot of Hassan lately. Like if I fall asleep with YouTube rolling, it kind of starts choosing videos for me on my couch, and then I wake up and it's like someone reading my tweets and a video playing of Hassan and he's saying my name. And then I was thinking about you, and that happens for you all the time. Like that type of stuff's been going on for you for a long time, eh?
Yeah, that's right, guys. Keep on talking about Hassan. That's what matters. Talk about Hassan and iDubbbz. That's what's important right now. Nothing else. That's what I want to hear more about, baby. Never in my life have I had such a miserable experience as having to watch these two men with a combined age of 80 babble on about stupid influencer drama so they can defend their blatant Zionism. Pigeon, I hear you say. You've claimed that both of these guys are Zionists. And I know this video is about Harley, but you haven't given any evidence of them being Zionists. And you know what? That's fair, because you're in the fucking exposition part of the video, dumbass. Sorry. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes, so to speak. Yummy. I'm not going to explain every reason why Ethan is a Zionist, because this video is not about him, it's about Harley. But I will say that if you have been paying attention even the slightest, it's pretty obvious that he is a Zionist. I only bring him up because I think it's important for context as to why Harley is even on that show to begin with. I think the easiest way to point to an obvious Zionist belief that Ethan has is just the fact that he tries to explain away Israel's occupation and imperialist nature as necessary due to
the fucking Arabs. The anti-Semitic Arabs.
There you go.
What? There you go, what? That's my point.
Now, he said this in the context of the great Jewish exodus from a lot of Arab countries and the anti-Semitism growing within the region. But if you think that's a reasonable take, I feel like you probably just don't know a lot about the Jewish exodus. Now, I'm not going to explain why Ethan's description of the Jewish exodus is such a gross oversimplification, but I will point out that it's very clearly at least a racist oversimplification. Palestine was not one of the countries with rising systemic anti-Semitic policy, and Ethan only thinks that this is a proper defense of Israel's colonialism because he's racist. He sees two groups of brown people and goes, yep, that's the same. Another thing that he just kind of doesn't mention is that Israel had a huge part in the mass exodus of Jewish people from these Arab countries. Israel funded mass migration movements out of other Arab countries into the place that they were colonizing, which is now known as Israel. So believe it or not, scapegoating the fucking Arabs is actually pretty racist. So basically, that's just the TLDR of one of Ethan's main Zionist talking points. There's a million moments like this over the past couple of years, and I could do a super in-depth video eventually, but I just feel like there's so many videos that go over just everything wrong with him. The reason why I'm even mentioning Ethan here or even dissecting one of his viewpoints is that I think it's important to recognize why Harley is even on this podcast in the first place. Harley's Zionist rhetoric and his status as friend of the H3 show is not happenstance. It is specifically because they share beliefs and hatred of the same people. They both cry at night about Hassan Piker. They both weirdly fantasize about Ian and Anissa's relationship together.
He has to have got a lobotomy or something. Like, I just don't understand the decisions he's made and why they thought it would be good. The way he expressed himself, everything they've done has been idiotic and bad. And it just has to be either that he got CTE, which heaven forbid, you know, or he got a lobotomy. Anissa put something in his oatmeal or something.
Jewish.
I don't know what. I don't know what she would put in his oatmeal to make him act that way.
They both use civilian deaths as fuel for their influencer drama. And they both hide their genocidal rhetoric behind the idea that we need to recognize the hurt of both parties in a genocide. Now, Harley's personal appearances on the H3 show are actually pretty apolitical, except for the obvious subtext of him going on a Zionist podcast and essentially just agreeing with all the opinions that Ethan has.
I don't know what. I don't know what she would...
The main place where Harley shares his just absolutely insane political takes is on Twitter. Now, Harley just has an absolute plethora of tweets that I could choose to pick apart, and there will be multiple that I go over. But I think the first one I should go over is this one. I'm going to be reading these tweets directly off my laptop that I have to the side with porn playing on the side, so I don't get bored. But mainly so I don't misquote him. Here's a tweet where Harley explains what Zionism is to the class. For those that don't know, it's actually a simple definition. Zionism is the belief that Israel can exist. That's it. That's all. That's Zionism. Well, gee, Harley, when you put it like that, I guess you're right. It is anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionist or whatever. But wait a second, do you guys think that definition might be missing something? Britannica, one of the oldest and leading encyclopedic databases whose entire job is to properly define historical movements in their historical context, defines it as such. Zionism is a Jewish nationalist movement with the goal of the creation and support of a Jewish national state in Palestine. That sounds a little bit different than what Harley said, but you know what? Maybe Britannica is just biased and that's just a single source. So how about we check what Oxford says? A movement for originally the reestablishment and now the development and protection of a Jewish nation in what is now Israel. Oh God, that's different too. Wait, don't worry, Harley. I know who will defend us, right? Because me and you, we both agree on your definition of Zionism. None other than the Times of Israel. They'll be on our side. To be a Zionist means to recognize the land of Israel as the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people and to believe in the existence of a Jewish state in the land of Zion or Israel. Oh fuck no, Harley! Now, I'm being a bit silly here, but if you genuinely can't tell what's different between the definitions Harley gave and the definitions that every other organization gives, including the fucking Times of Israel, is that his definition purposely leaves out the ethno-state aspect of Zionism. Now, the thing is that Zionists aren't particularly quiet about the fact that it is a ethno-nationalist movement. But it seems like the only people that disagree with that definition are people that consider themselves liberals or care about the average people because they want to hide the fact that Zionism is inherently ethnic supremacist. Zionism is not the belief that a place called Israel can exist. Zionism is not the belief that a country can be mostly populated by Jewish people. Zionism isn't even the belief that Jews are inherently tied to the land that Israel is on. Zionism is the explicit belief that a Jewish ethno-state is a necessity and must exist. And you can call me crazy, but I do not like ethno-states. Building an ethno-state, no matter the context, is always a far-right ideology. And all of this is without even mentioning the fact that the creators of Zionism specifically pointed to a piece of land where people were already living. That means that in order for Zionism to exist, and for Israel to exist on that specific piece of land, which is the belief of Zionism, that ethnic cleansing and imperialism is inherent to Zionism. The Nakba was not an unfortunate part of Israel's past, or something that they felt like they kind of had to do. It was directly the plan of Zionism. Without the elements of imperialism and colonialism and ethnic cleansing and genocide, you just do not have Israel. Zionists would not be happy if the land was anywhere else but the place where the Palestinians were living. They expressly want it on the land that they stole from Palestinians. Now, if you don't believe me that the specific area and land is important to Zionism, here's what the creator of Zionism, Theodore Hurls, had to say about the land the Palestinians are living on. National Judaism will make the ancient soil fertile. It seems miraculous. Everything natural is miraculous. Once a nation which we Zionists are arousing is fully awakened, things will happen swiftly and dynamically. So if you don't understand what that passage is saying, it's saying that essentially the Jewish people would make better use of the land that the Palestinians were living on, and thus living on that land must be done by the Jews. Well, sure, that points to the fact that Israel has to be directly on where the Palestinians' homes were. But it doesn't point to ethno-nationalism. Well, here is what Zeev Jabotinsky, founder of the Zionist revisionist movement, had to say about diversity. A Jew brought up among Germans may assume German custom, German words. He may be wholly imbued with that German fluid, but the nucleus of his spiritual structure will always remain Jewish, because his blood, his body, his physical racial type are Jewish. It is impossible for a man to become assimilated with people whose blood is different from his own. What? Does that sound like it's calling for anything but an ethno-state? It is quite literally saying that assimilation is impossible without, like, interracial marriage or something. Alright, but listen, those guys are the creators of Zionism, right? You know, that was like over 100 years ago. Maybe they're just outdated. So let's go a little bit further into the future, huh? Well, here is Benny Morris, a very prolific historian that Zionists love to point to as a good example of modern Zionism and liberal Zionism. What do you think he has to say about ethnic cleansing and genocide? In 2004, this is what Benny Morris had to say about the Nakba. There are circumstances in history that justify ethnic cleansing. I know that this term is completely negative in the discourse of the 21st century, but when the choice is between ethnic cleansing and genocide, the annihilation of your people, I prefer ethnic cleansing. A Jewish state would not have come into being without the uprooting of 700,000 Palestinians. Therefore, it was necessary to uproot them. There was no choice but to expel the population. It was necessary to cleanse the hinterland and cleanse the border areas and cleanse the main roads. It was necessary to cleanse the villages from which our convoys and our settlements were fired on. Still, that was 20 years ago, so maybe Zionism has gotten a little bit better, right guys? Well, here's what Ayelet Shakad had to say in 2014. She was a former Minister of Justice in Israel. What's so horrifying about understanding that the entire Palestinian people is the enemy? Every war is between two peoples, and in every war, people who started the war, that whole people is the enemy. They are all enemy combatants, and their blood shall be on all their heads. Now this also includes the mothers of the martyrs, who send them to hell with flowers and kisses. They should follow their sons, nothing would be more just. They should go, as should the physical homes in which they raise the snakes. Otherwise, more little snakes will be raised there. That straight up just sounds like a fucking Hitler quote. That's a fucking insane. Well, still, that's 10 years ago. I'm sure that there's nothing more recent than that, right guys? Right, Harley? Right, Harley? Well, in 2024, this is what May Golan, Minister of Social Equity and Women's Advancement, had to say. I am personally proud of the ruins of Gaza, and that every baby, even 80 years from now, will tell their grandchildren what the Jews did. Well, maybe you're thinking that even these people, right, that are considered, maybe some of them like Benny Morris are considered like almost like a liberal Zionist or more modern Zionism, that there is somehow a way to be Zionist without following just what Zionism is. Well, how about someone that is not even considered a Zionist by many people because, you know, he has no personal tie to Israel? Well, this is what Winston Churchill had to say about Israel's occupation of Palestine. I do not admit, for instance, that a great wrong has been done to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia. I do not admit that a wrong has been done to these people by the fact that a stronger race, a higher grade race, a more worldly race, to put it that way, has come in and taken their place. He said that directly to the Palestine Royal Commission. I'm noticing a pattern that all of these people who are figureheads in Zionism, right, and even people who are not figureheads in Zionism, but figureheads in imperialism, were all agreeing that the ethnic cleansing was not only necessary, but that it is somehow justified. So why don't you tell me again, Harley, what is the definition of Zionism? Is it just the belief that there is a place called Israel? Or is it the belief that somehow the creation of Israel and the ethnic cleansing of all the Palestinians that lived on that land and the current genocide is somehow justified? Because it seems as though everyone, from the original creators of Zionism to even the most modern perpetrators of Zionism, are all in agreement that the Nakba was a necessary part of the Zionist movement. But wait guys, Harley owns the anti-Zionists right here. 75% of the land that was Palestine is physically in Jordan. Zionism isn't about conquest. Israel has rescinded more land gained in any battle than any country that has ever existed in the history of the world. Well, Harley, I don't know how to tell you this, but in order to give up land you won in a battle, you have to first gain it. And what do you think gaining the land is? It's fucking colonialism. Also, trying to compare Jordan's expansion and its relationship to Palestine to Israel's relationship with Palestine is just fucking absurd. Like, it's really funny that he doesn't mention that Jordan also has the largest amount of Palestinian refugees out of like any country in the world. I wonder why Israel isn't even in the top 3 countries of places with Palestinian refugees, despite being right next to it. It's almost like Israel was and is purposefully displacing Palestinians from their homes, while Jordan was actively giving Palestinian refugees citizenship during their expansion.
Hint, it's almost like that because it's exactly like that.
I wonder why he also doesn't mention that many of the recent Jordan officials have all stated that they wanted Israel's occupation to end and recognize Palestine borders, and also want Palestine to have their own state. Like, listen, I'm not trying to shill for Jordan here. I wish they did more for the Palestinians, even though they do give some aid and are pretty vocal about being against the displacement of Palestinians, and they actively recognize the borders of Palestine. But Israel has been like 2,000 times worse to the Palestinians. Like, it is not even like in the same fucking stratosphere. To make this argument, you have to have literally zero knowledge about the Middle East. And this is not just a singular tweet from Harley. This is like his main argument against the idea that Israel is imperialist. Equating Israel with colonialism overlooks the unique historical and cultural connections of Jewish people to the land. Traditional colonialism, which involves a distant power exerting control over foreign territories, Israel represents a return of an indigenous population to their ancestral homeland. Imagine if today some Canadians were displaced from their town so indigenous people can return to that land and form a new indigenous country on that Canadian town. Would you call that indigenous country colonial? No, it would be far more complicated than that word suggests. 75% of the landmass that was Palestine is physically in Jordan, by the way. Do you refer to Jordan as colonial? Saying you're Zionist means you are against the destruction of Israel. It has nothing to do with conquest, land, resources, or anything. Israel has rescinded more land gained in battle than any other country in human history. He fucking loves that line. Being a Zionist means you believe Israel can exist. Besides the fact that my past arguments have already disproved the fact that Israel is anything but ethno-nationalist or colonial, Harley is once again parroting Zionist talking points without even using an ounce of critical thinking for 1 second. Harley is making the argument that Israel cannot be an imperialist or colonial power because Jewish people lived there 2,000 years ago. The vast majority of the Jewish population is Ashkenazi, and they have been European for, at the bare minimum, 80 generations. And somehow, that means that it is impossible for Israel to be a colonial power. Like, genuinely, what the fuck are we talking about here? Harley, you don't have any more connection to Israel than I do to, like, fucking Mesopotamia.
Hi, it's Editing Xander. Look, it's so pretty outside. Wow, even though I look like shit right now because I didn't go outside today. I just wanted to make it clear that yes, obviously there were Jewish people in the Middle East during that entire time, but my point is not that there was no Jewish people indigenous to that area. It's that a large part of the colonial power in that timeline was Ashkenazi Jews. So, you know, if you lived in Germany for how many ever generations you lived in, right? Or fucking Poland or wherever, right? You're no more ancestral to that piece of land than I am to fucking Rome as an Italian. Like, it's a very dumb argument. This is not a conversation about whether or not Jewish people who were expelled from the area historically deserve some form of reparations. That is not the conversation of what Zionism is. Zionism is the express taking over of land that is currently being lived on and taking it away from other people. So that's the point. Obviously, there are Mizrahi Jews, Sephardic Jews, you know, there are Middle Eastern Jewish people during that entire timeline. That's not my point. I just think I didn't articulate that as well. But anyways, back to Passander. My hair's longer now.
Israel's creation is not a retaking of land that was once stolen. It's conquering and ethnically cleansing and genociding an entire civilization, and then claiming that your 0.01% ties to the Middle East somehow grants you the possibility to morally genocide said civilization. It's just meaningless drivel that is trying to use any excuse that he can pull out of his ass to justify genocide and apartheid. Wait, Harley denies that an apartheid even exists in Israel. No, of course not. I don't know any Zionists personally that do think apartheid is necessary for Israel to exist. Israel proper, that's what we call a dog whistle, does not have apartheid. All citizens have equal rights. Here is Khalid Kabab. He is Arabic/Muslim Supreme Court judge. Not very apartheidy. Want to talk West Bank, Gaza? First tell me if Israel is allowed to exist. Oh wow, Harley. What a great point. First off, Arabic is not a ethnicity, it is a language, but let's just assume that Harley misspoke the same way that he did when he said Muslim. He points to the first Muslim judge in Israel's entire history, who wasn't elected until 2022, which means that he couldn't use this justification until 2022. Based off this tweet and the arguments I'm seeing and how stupid Harley is, I think it's safe to say that Harley is almost certainly parroting all of his opinions from this article by the Jerusalem Times. That article isn't really worth going over in specifics because Harley's tweet is just the same as it, but it's essentially just going, apartheid? Nuh-uh. Look at this brown guy. Harley tokenizes Muslims and brown people so that way he can hand-wave away the idea of apartheid, and he uses incredibly misleading parameters so that way he can be technically correct. Zionists always love to use the phrase Israel proper as a way to skate around the obvious human rights issues that are happening in Palestine. People call Israel an apartheid state. They are mainly speaking about the annexation and human rights violations in the West Bank. Amnesty International has a 280-page report that basically goes over the apartheid and violations set up during Palestine's occupation. And this is all the way back in 2022, just like that guy that was appointed, 2022. Now, after 50 pages of just defining what apartheid is, they go on to explain how specifically there is an apartheid in Israel. As outlined above, apartheid consists of a system of prolonged and cruel discriminatory treatment by one racial group of members of another, with the intention to control the second racial group. This chapter examines the extent to which Israel has created such a system of oppression and domination over Palestinians in all areas under its jurisdiction and effective control, as well as over Palestinian refugees whose right of return to their homes remains controlled by Israel. By obfuscating the purposeful displacement of Palestinians into a place that is shrinking and heavily policed away from Israel proper, Zionists in Israel are able to act as if there is no racial component to their oppression, and that the civil liberties and representation being marginally increased in Israel proper somehow makes apartheid an impossibility. Israel's rule over the occupied Palestinian territory through military orders in the context of its occupation has given rise to a false perception that the military regime in OPT is separate from the civil regime in annexed East Jerusalem and pre-1967 Israel. This view ignores the fact that many elements of Israel's repressive military system in the OPT originate in Israel's 18-year-long military rule over Palestinian citizens of Israel, imposed merely months after the creation of the new state in May 1948. Similarly, Israel extended many of its discriminatory laws against Palestinians in Israel to Palestinians in the OPT through military orders in most cases, by replicating Israeli legislation. Perhaps most importantly, this view ignores the fact that the dispossession of Palestinians in Israel continues today, with millions of Palestinian refugees and internally displaced people barred from their right to return and denied restitution and compensation. While the human rights situation of Palestinian citizens of Israel has generally improved since the end of the military rule over them, which removed, among other things, stringent restrictions on movement, the discriminatory laws and policies they were subjected to remain in force today, and crucially, the system that they created was never dismantled. The full integration of West Bank settlements into Israel's infrastructure, economy, education, and court systems also points to the existence of one system of oppression and domination. Israeli citizens can travel unobstructed along major roads linking settlements in the West Bank, with Israeli towns across the Green Line. The demarcation line set out in 1949 armistice agreements between Israel and its neighbors that served as the de facto borders of the State of Israel until 1967, and the Israeli authorities provide heavy subsidies, financial and tax incentives, and low-cost utilities and resources to encourage Jewish Israelis to live in settlements. In addition, Israeli citizens living inside Israel sustain the settlements enterprise by working or studying in settlements and by visiting attractions and businesses run by them. For both Israelis and Palestinians across all territorial domains, the Israeli Supreme Court remains the court of final appeal. To date, much of the analysis of the human rights situation faced by Palestinians in Israel and the OPT, including by Amnesty International, has been limited by the existence of these separate legal regimes, and has failed to address Israeli violations against the Palestinian people holistically, despite long-standing calls by Palestinian activists and more recently, some Israeli NGOs to change this approach. However, as noted in a 2017 report by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, which concluded that Israel had established an apartheid regime that dominates the Palestinian people as a whole, the method of fragmentation serves precisely to obscure the Israeli apartheid regime's very existence. Indeed, as will be demonstrated in this chapter, Israeli policies aim to fragment Palestinians into different geographic and legal domains of control, not only to treat them differently or to segregate them from the Jewish population, but also to treat them differently from each other in order to weaken family, social, and political ties between Palestinian communities, to suppress any form of sustained dissent against the system that they created, and ensure more effective political and security control over land and people across all territories. Now, if you were interested in all of the legal minutiae and the actual exact examples of how Israel is setting up this apartheid specifically, I recommend you read the full 280-page report. An actual report on Israel itself is about 50 to 60 pages in, which there's a table of contents that you can go through. The link for that is in the description, but for brevity's sake, I'm not going to be going over the whole thing right now. So the UN, the ICJ, and Amnesty International have all agreed that there is an apartheid in Israel. How do you guys think that Israelis and Zionists responded? If you guessed that they called it anti-Semitic before the report was even released, you'd be right. Congrats. You know exactly how Israel works. Because that is how Zionism works. It is purposely turning a blind eye to all the obvious human rights violations, so that way they can still benefit from imperialist structures while still claiming to be a victim the whole time. You have multiple large non-profit groups whose entire existence is to designate human rights violations and to try and stop them. And the designation of apartheid in Israel happened way before October 7th. And yet, here we are, having to listen to the Epic Mealtime guy who almost definitely did not read that report. And the thing is, I don't even know why I should be making this video at all. Because Harley, despite actually admitting that he knows nothing about the Middle East, still feels the need to open his mouth every 5 seconds to defend Zionism. I mean, this man unironically believes that there was an attempted genocide against Israel for the entirety of 2023 until now. And his reasoning for this is that 10,000 plus rockets have been fired into Israel, most stopped by the Iron Dome, of course. And yet, he still denies that there is a genocide in Gaza, despite the fact that well over 20,000 attacks have taken place on the Palestinian people, and they don't even have like an air defense system. The moment you point that out, suddenly words are important and we can't just rush to calling things a genocide. Never mind the fact that he just called what happened to Israel an attempted genocide. Sure, the UN and the ICJ have both declared that this is a genocide, but people really got to be careful with that word. You know, you guys really should do some research before calling it a genocide. That's a word that carries weight. Anyways, Harley, what were you saying earlier? Something about a genocide being against Israel? Right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So the question is, where do I go from here? Do I just spend more time disproving his hypocrisies and obvious logical fallacies and just straight up misinformation? Because trust me, there's a lot more. Do I point to the fact that he tweets things like Israel has a right to defend itself and how that's an obvious dog whistle for just ethnically cleansing all of Palestine and wiping it off the map? Or do I simply just laugh at the absurdity of this odd millennial failing YouTube career that has somehow turned into spreading Zionist propaganda? And to be completely honest, I don't know if I really know the correct answer. The reason why I have such a hard time writing this video and any video about Zionism is that I really just don't know how to approach it sometimes. I don't know if it is possible for me to reach someone that can somehow see the blatant starving of children en masse, the leveling of an entire civilization, see these quotes from Zionists that just sound like straight up Nazis, and then somehow say that we should feel bad for the Nazis. And to be completely honest, it feels kind of gross that I have to frame this around YouTube drama. But also I worry that if I don't do that, no one is going to listen to this video. Every single time I look into Zionism and Zionists, it becomes so obvious to me how heartless of a prick you have to be truly be a Zionist. And I think it's so easy to grow frustrated and defeated after having a discussion with someone that not only shows such deep irreverence towards every human value you hold dear, but then somehow tries to present it as if that irreverence is the moral thing to do. But at the end of the day, I don't think you can let that feeling stop your advocacy, because that's what advocacy is. I think the worst thing you can do as Palestine is being decimated and a genocidal regime just keeps on pushing harder is to give up on the Palestinians and just give way to the Zionist propaganda. So you can donate, you can protest, you can educate, you can volunteer, and so many other things, because there are people that are enduring the consequences of Zionism far worse than you are. So I do not just say free Palestine, because free Palestine makes it seem as if it is an action that has a possibility of failure. But rather, I think fascism is a snake eating its own tail. So Palestine will be free. So finally, fuck you, Harley. Thanks for watching. I want to thank you so much for watching my video. If you did, or unless you just skipped to the end to watch this part, you got me. If you did enjoy this, I would really appreciate giving it a freaking thumbs up. Maybe even hitting that dang subscribe button. Not only is it good for me, because obviously I think it tells me what type of content you guys like and, you know, incentivizes me to continue to do this. But also, I would just like to see more pro-Palestine content out there. So subscribing and liking does tell the algorithm that it should be pushing videos like this more. And I think you should also be, you know, spreading pro-Palestine videos any way you can, even if that is, you know, the bare minimum. Probably even less so than the bare minimum, but the bare minimum. I don't know how long my videos are until I fully edit them, but based on the script length, this is another long one. So I really do thank you if you watch the entire thing. I know I can kind of ramble on, so even if you didn't enjoy it as much as you think you should have, I appreciate that. Sorry, but the reason it took so long for this one to come out is that there was a new school year, I moved into a new apartment, I got a new cat, his name is Squid, he's awesome, and hi, please don't, nope, that's a mic. And also, my Mac broke for a while. I got it fixed, but I figured with so many setbacks, I might as well just go balls to the wall and make the exact video I want, since I have like no sponsorship restrictions or anything. I also recommend following me on all my socials if you want either more content from me or just more information on shit like that. Hopefully they're on screen. If they're not, Fuck you, Eder Xander. I'm most active on Twitter, but I also post a decent amount on my Instagram stories, and I have been kind of releasing content on my TikTok. You know, a few cut-ups of past YouTube videos, as well as some brand new spanking content that's nowhere else. Maybe I'll put it on YouTube Shorts, I don't know. All right, so last time you guys didn't leave any questions for me, either because you hate me or I'm too handsome, you got scared. Either way, I forgive you, and to remedy this, I'm going to be answering a singular question on a random BuzzFeed quiz I find. All right, I'm in incognito mode, so you don't see what porn I like. Sorry if that interested you. Eat only Italian dishes for the day, and I'll reveal your biggest. I choose lasagna. All right, I'm going to take the whole quiz off camera, and then you guys can see what my biggest green flag is. They said empathy is my superpower. Let me know if you guys agree. Anyways, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys next time when the jock, the big jock, asks me out as a prank to prom because I'm the ugly girl, and then we start to fall in love. But then I find out that it was actually a prank the whole time. So then I get mad and I break up with him. And then like a day later, he confesses to me in the rain that actually at first it was a prank, but then he actually was falling in love with me. And he's sorry. And then I get back together with him and we go to prom, and I take off my glasses and I look exactly like Linda Cardellini, or maybe I am Linda Cardellini, and win prom queen. You don't know. Could happen. All right, bye.
Doing your mom? That's just insulting!